place. You know, you get the very cold winters, and you get quite warm winters and so forth, and consequently, there's no one way of preparing for winter. But there are some basic sort of rules, like you need to make sure that, I think Peter mentioned this earlier on, you need to make sure that your bees are pretty healthy. You've got no diseases there. You need to make sure that you've got plenty of nectar and pollen and food and what have you. You need to make sure that the queen's happy and laying well, and that she's giving you enough brood to so that when spring comes along, she'll have a bunch of workers to help her out and to get her going as she starts to lay. Because when you come into spring, there's a whole bunch of bees there that are tired out and worn out, and they drop off the perch very soon after spring hits. And hopefully, if there's enough brood there, then you get a new lot coming online, and away we go again. You also need to make sure the hives are in the right place, that when the winds and rain of winter come along, they don't fill up with water and get blown over and what have you. So you need to pay a little bit of attention to that. Anyway, just a little bit about myself. I've been keeping bees for 4 years, which maybe 5, I've forgotten now. But it's around about that time. And I only have 6 hives. I only want 5, but I got 6 for some reason or another. I've just got the ordinary Langstroth hive. Okay, and I'm pretty lazy with them actually, I must confess. I'm not one of these really keen people, but I'm fairly keen. I live down in Pound Creek near Inverloch, which means the weather is fairly mild. We do get an occasional frost, so but it's not really cold with snow or anything like that. And I keep bees just because I kind of like it. I'm not commercial, I don't sell honey, so that's my motivation for what I do with my hives coming into winter. Now, I'm going to stop right there because what I want these gentlemen, I've got David over there, I've got Steve, and I've got Peter. I want them just to introduce themselves first up, so you know where they're coming from, why they do what they do. Okay, do you want to go first, Peter?
I'm Peter Gold from Yarra, and I've been keeping bees, I guess, for about 7 to 8 years, purely Langstroth. Currently 10 hives, and this season I lost 3 over the matter of probably 3 to 4 weeks, and it was, it went from vibrant colonies to no sign, whatever, on the next inspection. Where do I keep the hives in winter? Normally I keep them probably about 300 metres from the breakers at Woodside Beach.
So it's a warm winter?
Typically it's degrees warmer than at Yarra. I can go out there on a winter's day and normally they'll be flying, so. And they come in from their quite motivation. I find them fascinating, they're challenging, and I like honey, and I really like honey.
Are you commercial at all?
No.
No, okay. Okay, Steve.
Yeah, me alright? Need the mic? Yeah. I'm Steve Lovey. I live in Coonwarra, and just before I go any further, where's Graham? I'm just going to say I'll put my hand up for the honeymead judging. Oh, well, right. I have a taxi ready.
Do you need a ride that night, Steve?
Oh, well, thanks, right, yeah. No, I live in Coonwarra. Now, I've had my first hive I got in about 94, and I am a backyard beekeeper. I'm time poor, so I don't, probably not as religious as you should be, but I've been able to bluff my way through for a few years, so that has helped. I currently have around 4 or 5 hives. I sort of try and keep it around that. And sort of keeps me out of trouble. I mainly have the Langstroth hives, and I'm pretty basic with my hives. I don't use a queen excluder. I run 2 brood boxes, so it seems to suit the way that I keep my bees. I don't move them; they stay in my backyard. So over winter, I sort of don't look for warm spots. I have been reasonably warm spots during the year, except for one of my hives, which is at Leongatha, at my son's place. And I got it in 1996, and it came from the Leongatha North School. It was a swarm. I've never requeened it. It's just looked after itself.
From 96?
Since 96, yeah, and it's unfortunately it has a pretty bad behavioural problem. The little black ones, and I don't know whether I'm getting too old or that I'm actually thinking about I might need to requeen it, because it's not that enjoyable to work with, but it's been probably my best time. But it's looked after itself. And my motivation for keeping bees, I just find them very interesting, and yeah, I don't mind the honey and the pollination, and the bee that I don't make, but I go around judging.
So you're not commercial either?
I'm not commercial,
Okay.
I'm just
Right.
bee keeping.
Okay, and the weather down there in Coomera, it's much the same as Pound Creek?
Yeah, it's all pretty much the same. As I say, I tried Leongatha because of its behavioural problems. I do have it because it's at my son's place in town, and I sort of don't want to upset the neighbours, so I do have it in more shade than it should be, but it does seem to do all right.
Okay. All right, David, my neighbour.
No relation. David Walker. I have my bees at Pound Creek also, but we overlook the water, Anderson's Inlet, so we don't get frost. We're up on top of the hill. Julian's down a little bit lower, and I look down out of my kitchen window sometimes and it's cold down there, but not at home. I've got 34 hives. I've sold 5 this year, but I've also got 5 in the pipeline for when the spring opens up. We've got to go and take them out of buildings and toolboxes and all sorts of things, so the number stays relatively stable. I originally got into them in February 13, and I don't know, we started with 1, we then got to 5, and then a few more, and then a few more, and it just keeps growing. And I originally got them because, I can't laugh too much, but my wife always said I had sex every morning because my pumpkins weren't pollinating, so I had to pick the male stamen, I think it's called, and pollinate the female flowers of the pumpkins, and I thought, this is crazy. I saw an ad in the paper, a beehive and equipment for sale, so I rang the guy, and we talked for quite a while, and I said, by the way, where are you? Because when you get a mobile number, you don't know where they are. And he said, I'm in a little place called Ruby. Where are you? And I said, I'm in a little place called Pound Creek. And we got talking, and I'd known him for 30 or 40 years. So I went and had a look at the bees and all this equipment, and I bought the lot. And that got me started. And Rob Franson became a very good help to me as a mentor in the early days. And then Les Swift and Rob Splatt. So there's a lot of knowledge in the club to get you going for the new people that are starting out. They're all anthrope hives, and as I said, the weather's fairly kind down home, but I do have bees from Port Albert to Willow Grove to Bass and all in between, because we're farming contractors and clients say, can you bring a couple of hives? So we have, and we go and collect honey. We give them a few tubs of honey when we've spun it out, and they're happy and I'm happy. It's a win-win.
So you see, we've got 3 more or less different people. 4, counting me. Okay, in some ways, packing down or preparing for winter begins at the beginning of spring, in some way. Because the first step of preparing for winter, I suppose, is making sure that your hives are healthy In other words, looking for diseases and so forth and what have you. Things like chalk brood, looking around to see if you haven't got any chalky bits and pieces in there. Wax moth, and that's pretty easy to see. Okay, and basically you're doing this all the time, but come around about now or there, you make a concerted effort to make sure that you don't have any of these things. American foul brood, anybody had it tested yet? Except me? Okay, good. It's a good idea to go and get it tested. Okay? Yeah, that's right, honey test. Get, in fact, what I did, I think Dave's going to do the same, get the whole lot tested. And if it comes back negative, fine, you don't have to worry about it. But if it comes back positive, then something in there's disease, so then you have to start refining it. Okay, so it's worthwhile doing that. And of course, small hive beetle, we've talked about that. It's worthwhile keeping a good eye out on that. But come now, this is the time where I get up and I really have a good look to make sure I don't have any of those things. Okay, that my small hive beetle traps are all in place and hopefully empty, which they generally are. Okay, so that's what I do for the health of the bees. And I guess you guys do much the same? Yeah? Is there anything you want to add to that? No?
It's just a habit when you open a hive, you check for all of these things. And generally you can look by the numbers of bees that are coming and going, and if there's not many, say, there's a problem.
Yeah. And what happens if you do find a problem? What happens if you find that one of your bees has got a bit of one of your hives has got a bit of a wax moth infestation? Okay, that is usually an indication that something is wrong with the hive. So you've got to take a bit of action, and it's possibly that your queen's not there anymore. It's possibly that because if the queen's there, laying plenty of brood, producing plenty of bees, then the wax moth are going to have a hard time to survive. If there's no bees or limited ones, then the wax moth will get a bit of a gallop on. Have you come across that situation where you've got wax moth?
Yeah, there's a couple of stages there. I suppose the first thing you look at is why.
Yep.
A lot of times the bees are under stress or they've shrunk in size, so they can't deal with it.
If there's strong numbers, you don't get so much wax moth.
Okay, and then there's the brood. Okay, in fact I did my final brood check. Oh, I'll probably do another one actually. Today I checked all the brood and looked to see that I'm using 2 brood boxes, and all of them have, every frame had brood on it, and every frame had something like somewhere between a teacup saucer and bigger amount of brood on each frame. So I'm happy with that. If I found any hives, and I did have one earlier on, when I opened it up, I found only a few little specks of brood, which was a bit of a worry. If that's the case, then I would go starting to look for the queen for that one. And if I couldn't find the queen, then I'd either get some brood from another hive and go and requeen that hive, or I would close that hive down and put it with another hive. That's where I'd take it. So, brood?
I run one brood box.
One brood box?
Yeah, so my concentration of brood is probably slightly greater than per frame than yours.
And you go on.
And I tend to look at the ratio of brood to stores for them to go through winter, and I try and get it roughly 1 to 1.
1 to 1.
Or a bit better.
Okay, so you balance brood with...
Yeah, and I opened the box at home in the backyard last weekend. Both of them have been very productive during the season. One was still like, as though it was the first flush of spring, with bees everywhere. Eggs of all stages. The box next to it, first time I've ever had wax moth. And earlier in the season it was brilliant. So I don't understand why you can have 2 boxes that were formerly going so well, shoulder to shoulder, now all of a sudden it's so vastly different. So there was minimal infestation.
Well, I've wintered, out of my 4, I've wintered 3 down, except for the one with the behavioural problem. We'd like a really hot day for that one, just make sure they don't know. But I wintered down to 2 boxes. One of the main reasons I do that is because I'm still working, unfortunately. And the other end, where in spring, if the weekends are the only times that I can sort of look at my hives, and if I get a couple of weekends that aren't fine, and the queen's laying and they're looking for room, I sort of think if I've got 2 boxes, I've got a bit more room. It gives me a bit of leeway for the part of my swarm prevention the next season in the spring. So I tend to do that. Plus, I like to think that I'll have enough honey with 2 boxes, because we can get some cold, long winters.
Yeah.
That's my main reason.
Yeah. And do you check your brood, David?
Yep. Generally speaking, I do 4 inspections a year. Like Steve, I'm still working, don't have a lot of time, so I make sure that we only ever run 2 brood boxes. And if the queen happens to go up into the 3rd during the season when I'm expecting to take some honey, I'll stick an excluder in them, but otherwise I don't use the excluders. And wait 3 weeks, then you can spin the honey out because all the brood is hatched out. But generally speaking, with big numbers of bees, you don't have much problem because there's plenty of brood there. They're still producing. I've been checking in the last few weeks in preparation for taking the last of the honey or moving frames around to make sure they've got plenty of food during the winter.
Okay, so we've checked the health of the bees, we've checked the brood, the health of the queen. The other thing to check is the food reserves to make sure they've got enough nectar and pollen. Now, if they don't have, for me, enough, I think for me is at least 4 capped frame equivalents. So because I'm running 2 supers, I just count up the half frames and say, yeah, there's 4 frame equivalent. That might not be the best way, it might not be what the books say, but it works for me. Okay, down in Pound Creek. So, do you have you have a 1-to-1 ratio, you were saying?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you might have to juggle that between boxes that have more honey available. So
Yep.
this time of year,
shift frames around a bit?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you feed a bit? Do you feed them at all?
Yes, I've had to feed
Yeah.
considerably in the last few years. Not so much this season, but prior to that, yeah.
So if you find it a bit empty and you haven't got enough to shift over, start
Yeah, sugar,
feeding.
yeah, white sugar,
Yeah.
yeah, straight in.
Yeah. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, because I did the 2 boxes, I like to give them probably about 6 full frames.
Yeah.
And the 2 other frames, I'd like to give them a little bit of room to work just in case they need a bit of room over there for some reason. But what's the question again there?
What do you do if you're low on, you find one of the boxes is low on?
Well, normally I sort of don't get to that stage.
Yeah.
I have enough reserves.
You make sure.
Yeah, because as I say, with the 2,
Yeah.
I make sure I've got enough.
Yeah.
But if I haven't, I've got one of those feeders from Ron
Yep.
over at Moe. You just sit on top and you just move the lid back and pour it in. I find them extremely good.
Yeah, I've done that in the past, used the feeder.
Yeah.
But this year, plenty of honey in mine.
Yeah.
David?
Definitely full, 6 full frames capped in 2 boxes, and generally you go down through them, you'll find there's a little bit of honey around the brood and so on, so you add that on to the 6, but never less than 6. In fact, in my shed at the moment I've got, I reckon, about 30 fully capped frames sitting in boxes because I need to go through after Anzac Day and pack them down.
Yep.
So we keep them specially for that reason, and like moving them around. Biosecurity says you shouldn't do that, but I like to make sure they've got plenty of food, and if it means shifting frames around from one hive to another, that's what I'll do, because there's 2 things against feeding them. One is it's time consuming, and secondly it's costly. So don't be greedy and take too much honey. Leave plenty in there and then you know they'll survive. Plus if they come away for the winter, so
Yeah, well,
nobody to feed them.
up north. Yeah, and remember Peter earlier on was talking about feeding with sugar, what was it, like fondant type things.
Yeah, Ben was here last time.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I put sometimes I'll put some dry white sugar on the mat up the top if I'm concerned, but I see Ben has a fondant, which is a bit like soft icing. It's just made out of white sugar again, but it seems a lot less messy, and
Yeah.
I thought I might try that.
Well, I've tried the liquid,
Yeah.
the sugar mix. I haven't tried fondant.
Mm.
I tried making, and you might want to do this if you're into cooking, making a candy. And I've got the recipe now, but it comes out, it looks like toffee. And you just pour it out into plugs like this size and put it under on top of the hive mat, and away they go. They knock it right back.
Actually, a friend posted, was checking some hives today, and he just got one of the plastic, like 500 gram or kilo honey buckets with
Yeah.
a yellow lid, and
Okay.
just filled that up with his sugar syrup, and then just poked a lot of holes
Okay.
in it, just little small nail holes, and if you tip it upside down, you don't want it to be a shower coming out.
Yeah.
You just want